Thank you, Manolo, and good morning and welcome, everybody. As they say in Spanish, una imagen vale más que mil palabras. You have seen a very green scenario and leaves. And so please welcome to this conference, which, of course, for all of us after COVID is clearly marked by what we see. I mean, we have many, of course, but we see as the next big challenge for everybody in this room and the world, which is the climate change challenge. So it's wonderful to see many of you here in Madrid. I hope next time without masks. And what is clear is that during this past 18 months, we've all gone through very extraordinary times, very difficult times. COVID has been a terrible thing for the world, and at the personal level, we've all lost colleagues and friends, and the world is still suffering this terrible virus. But at the same time, we've also seen that the world has not slowed down. We are hearing this morning what we've seen with the vaccine development. All the experts in the world would never have dared to guess or predict that we'd have effective vaccines so fast, which I think is something we must reflect on as we think about the challenges ahead. You know, we've seen supply chain disruption to an extent, again, none of us could have predicted. And this is something which is not going to, I would say, go back to where we were. Of course, the most exponential change has been digital. And we've seen that on a personal level, where our parents, grandparents are now very comfortable ordering through Amazon and doing mobile banking, hopefully with Santander. So let me just look ahead and say that I am an optimist. And as I was saying, one of the big lessons of the pandemic has been the incredibly, again, surprising to some resilience of our economies, of our people, of our small companies, and the creativity we have. It's about how people have looked after each other, how our shops had food, how we invented, literally in weeks, new ways of working from home. And I want to say, and Manolo was referring to our first conference, that banks this time we have been part of the solution. Only Santander was lending 1 billion euros a day, every day during 2020. We have enough capital to support our customers, to make sure we are prudent for our regulators, and also for our shareholders. We are now, again, allowed to pay dividends in Europe, as you know. So I am an optimist, and I define myself as such, but an optimist, and as a banker, that's how it should be, that worries a lot. And as I said, climate change is now the biggest global challenge, as COVID is and still is, and we need a global response. And science tells us that unless we do something, and we do something now, that change could be irreversible. So what we need, of course, is that leaders, not just private sector, but world leaders, understand the implications. And there is a unique opportunity in Glasgow, perhaps the last chance to keep the ambition we set for ourselves in the world in Paris in 2015 alive, which is to be net zero by 2050. So the good news is that global finance is mobilizing to fund the transition to the green economy. As a founding member of the Net Zero Banking Alliance, we at Santander are committed to being net zero carbon by 2050. Let me remind you that is not just us, but 150 million customers and all the supply chain for Santander. And we've set our first decarbonization target, which is that by 2030, we will align our power generation portfolio to the Paris Agreement goals, where we'll stop providing financial services to any company that has more than 10% of revenues from thermal coal, and eliminate all exposure to thermal coal mining by that date. And of course, we're financing the green transition. We're a global leader in financing renewables. I know that as a bank, we always have a way of being number one, but it doesn't matter how you measure it, with a leader or top 3 or top 5, and that has been the case for several years. Since 2020, the renewable projects we have financed created enough energy to power a city 3 times the size of London. And that shows the opportunities that this green transition also creates. So I'm very proud of the steps that Santander, but also our peers, other banks in Europe and across the world have taken. It is also true that the hard climb is yet ahead of us. So, to help our customers, our people, companies around the world go green, we need better and very important comparable data. And above all, companies in every sector need guidance and policies from governments that set clear transition plans with dates, also incentives for every sector. We need planning, we need long-term frameworks for that low-carbon transition. We need clear, consistent global regulatory incentives and disincentives. And of course, that means that we also, this is probably the harder part, voters who understand why this matters and that accept the disruption ahead because they understand. We need governments, of course, that can build those social safety nets because there will be people whose jobs will disappear. We need policies to help businesses create the millions of jobs to replace them. And we need, again, politicians that can ask those tough questions about the way power works in the digital economy so that it works for everyone. We need big companies and company leaders that are willing to lead and to be an example. And of course, banks and capital markets that can provide that finance to transition, to drive the big transformation and the growth it will bring. Again, let's remember, without growth, the transition will not be possible or will be very, very tough. And of course, regulation, as I said, has to be aligned globally. So our conference this year addresses all these big issues, as always and as it should. But I want to start small. We are at a turning point. And one of the many things I have learned over many years working in a bank is that most of the things we describe here as very big transitions and big themes in our societies and economies are actually millions of small ones. They are changes in technology and social expectations, but they play out in individual businesses and homes, in each one of our daily lives. And as I often tell my colleagues, that is what makes my job and all of our jobs worthwhile, being part of that. Being able to have a positive impact in millions of people and businesses when we get it right. And COVID has been like that, because behind all those health statistics, all those huge borrowing figures, the trillions spent, Christine Lagarde was saying that, keeping economies on life support and developing and rolling out vaccines are a billion stories. Stories of loss, of course, but also of resilience. So I want to start at that level. I want to talk about the Barrueco brothers, a lady and a man, two Spanish entrepreneurs who have been able to succeed by combining a good idea, a clear vision of how to scale a business opportunity, and an incredible resilience and persistence to overcome all the obstacles that appear on the road. So Luisa and Paco Barrueco took over, they're based in Salamanca, took over their family business, created back in '92 by their parents, Marisa and Paco. And as most of the small companies in our economies, they were firmly grounded in the local communities. And when the year 2000 arrived, remember that was the mad cow disease, they realized that there was a need to manage the removal of the dead cows from the farms, and that this was both a social need, but also a good business opportunity. So they researched the market, sailed the bureaucratic ocean of permissions, regulations, trained their people, actually retrained their people, and they entered what effectively was a totally new activity. This is called flexibility and resource reallocation. Big words from The Economist translated into a real case company. In a very short period, they became successful, they became a medium-sized company. And then came the scaling of the business. they learned that there was value going beyond just being middlemen, which is what they were at the time, between the farms and the waste treatment plant. So they decided to vertically integrate. And they aimed high. They aimed to become a company that could service half of the Spanish market. That's 250,000 square kilometers. With a plant in the technological frontier, able to create marketable products. They create, from the byproducts of all the greases, they create a combustion, clean energy, and operating in a very clean and sustainable environment. And they needed land to build a plant. They needed permits from the regional health authorities, but of course they also needed money. That's what we're here for, to finance the product. And that was proving very difficult. So what they did is one Sunday morning, Paco read in his tablet on my LinkedIn that that Santander wanted to help entrepreneurs, if we wanted to advance the well-being of all of the Spanish people, we needed to invest more in entrepreneurs and small companies, and how Santander was committed to helping that happen. So Luisa wrote to me and told me their story. Again, I tell you this because Paco and Luisa represent what we and what I believe at Santander, that the people of this country, and if I may, across Europe, and why not the world, we have the ideas, the persistence, the courage, the flexibility. We have the vision. By early Tuesday, our Smart Fund team was scheduling a business meeting, and our teams worked together with them and the local authorities to finance the project. I was actually visiting them a few weeks ago. It is incredible. They have this treatment plant in Puerto Llano. It's in another region, not in their hometown, which is at the forefront in terms of sustainability, but also of technology. When this project is finished, they will be creating 50 jobs. And they have helped the local economy. It's unbelievable what they have done there. And yes, they will be profitable and make money, but they're solving a very real recycling problem in a sustainable way. And that is what sustainable and inclusive growth is all about. It's about the dream of people like them coming true, and about how the well-being of the communities around them are going to profit from this. And this is our commitment. This is what we believe. This is why I would urge you all, as we have our discussions today, as we get asked these very difficult, big questions by James and others, that we keep the Paco and Luisas, not just of Spain, but of the world in mind. That we're able to translate these big changes into the language and experience of a small business or individual households. Because it is only with this perspective that we can see what the problems look like from the ground level. How that understanding must shape our approach to designing solutions. It doesn't matter if you're the European Commission, the European banks, or any other institution. That is the question we should ask ourselves. And all these big issues, in our case, when we ask ourselves how much capital should banks hold, they remain abstract until you link them, as in this case, to the balance sheet flexibility to make one loan. COVID-19 showed how small and big businesses have the resilience, imagination, and innovation. And we at Santander, all my colleagues around the world, are committed to support Barrueco's spirit, and to all SMEs and entrepreneurs, that we will work together to support you. Thank you very much.